You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WYPC.
WCYTV.
Here on the Daily Signal.
Good evening and welcome to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC. Whether you're joining us via the live stream crew, radio, TV, or any place else, it's good to have you here. Let's dig right into the news. Cuba is in an honest-to-goodness oil crisis. So we shared a graph projection about 2 weeks ago from the Financial Times showing that estimated Cuban reserves of oil were running very, very low indeed. Now the oil reserves have run so low that flights are essentially banned from the island whatsoever. Whether you are from one of those Western imperialist evildoer countries, at least as they would say on the island, probably in Spanish, or you're from one of the buddy countries, like Russia, for instance, you will find yourself essentially deboarding and then getting right back on your plane and going elsewhere, if you're allowed to land at all. A lot of flights that were en route to Cuba have essentially been turned around and landed in airports that the pilots can reach with the fuel that they have on board. Now you say, wow, does this mean that, Cuba is completely out of any kind of, oil whatsoever? Are they completely dead after all? For example, Reuters shared a clip today with a really, really bizarre caption suggesting that Cuba is struggling to divert all of its resources to essential services as the United States has so terribly and meanly and stinkily cut oil short over on the island. Now, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. Cuba has definitely saved enough oil to fuel at least one 1957 Chevrolet or Cadillac for El Grandissimo or whatever to drive around for at least a hot minute. So they're not completely out of luck just yet, although there are a couple of United States craft which are getting a lot closer, and I do mean a lot closer to the northern coastline of Venezuela. One of these is the USS Stockdale. It is a missile cruiser, and it is now just 16 knots north of Santa Cruz del Norte. That is the small port city just about I'd say 15, 20 minutes, depending on how fast you drive, east of Havana. So the United States clearly willing to carry this particular sanction out in full. Now, the United States also intercepted an oil tanker in I believe they had tracked it and hunted it from the Caribbean to the Indian Ocean. Now, I don't know if you're a geography expert. Just in case you're not, those are not next to each other. That's not close by. We had an entire joke about Christopher Columbus about that exact thing. If the Caribbean and the Indian Ocean are right next to each other, man, that would have made the 1490s a lot easier. That is not true at all. The United States sent in two separate forces to intercept. Sorry, helicopters are rather loud. This footage is from Fox News. They sent in a couple of crews to do the classic couple of flybys of the oil tanker that, according to the Department of War, was, quote, operating in defiance, end quote. The Department of War wrote, "We tracked and hunted this vessel from the Caribbean to the Indian Ocean. You will run out of fuel long before you will outrun us." Now, this has really, really, really upset Russia. And when Russia wants to do some saber rattling at the United States, it sends out some random old saggy dude from the Kremlin. I mean, hey, we have our own old saggy dudes that we send out to bluff and stuff. But the Kremlin sends out one particular old saggy man with very thin glasses, lashing out at the Trump administration over anti-Russian policies, U.S. board vessel known to carry sanctioned Russian oil. How could you be doing of this? Everyone knows Russian Navy strong. Ever since Sean Connery was hunt for Red October. No. The United States, under the Trump administration, apparently is going back to the oldest tradition of the United States other than flipping off the British, which is maintaining a Navy that has absolutely zero tolerance for either piracy or ignored sanctions. Now, that brings us over to the news from Iran, because the Iranian regime has now decided, while the United States appears to be stockpiling, building up anti-air and missile intercept equipment at various bases in allied regions, not, by the way, just for the United States and for Israel, but also for Jordan, for Lebanon, a little bit for Turkey. Essentially, the United States is sending in the offensive line from Indiana University to stand up against whatever junior varsity either Iran or the New England Patriots is fielding. You take your pick. Now, the Iranian response to the United States building up and not moving as quickly as they wanted. Of course, J.D. Vance is out there every day, Vice President of the United States, essentially saying something rather different. This is what he does when the president is preparing for something on a foreign policy level. The vice president will get out there and he'll say one day, well, we're actually going to be doing this. And then the next day he'll say, well, the president and I are cognizant of something completely different. And then the third day, we would really like a deal. And then the fourth day, we would like a deal, but we're not quite sure. So what is the Iranian response to this? To mock President Trump. I'm going to let you in on a little secret. Just a little secret here. That typically does not go very well. But here is an Iranian parliament member. I don't know his name, Abdul Dakh or whatever. He's going to make a claim that the president of the United States approached the Iranian government and said, I want to do like a small war for looks, like a dollhouse. I'll get my Green Army men, you get your GI Abduls, and we'll have a nice little war. So this is what the Iranians are currently running as their, I guess, like President Trump is floating theater to the Iranians. He says, let me hit one or two locations in Iran. That's what this is on Russian translation for the Iranian state media. He said, you can give a response too. And then Iran said, it's all over now. We refuse to play in your games, Mr. President. It is haram. Okay. Things that didn't happen for 500, Alex.
Answer there, the Daily Double.
Oh, yes. Double the mocking from the Iranians at the Americans. We now have another clip from the Iranian foreign minister asking before an international kind of a small press conference per se, as much as you can have in Iran, saying, why is the president so hostile? Why would Americans not like what we're doing here?
ببینید سوال درست اینه که علت دشمن افراطی آمریکا
Real question is, why is America so hostile toward us?
این رو باید جواب.
That's what we need to answer.
شما مثال هسته‌ای که
You mentioned the nuclear deal. In the nuclear deal, what are we supposed to do in diplomacy that we didn't do?
زدید در موضوع هسته‌ای ما چیکار باید می‌کردیم در دیپلماسی که نکردیم؟ مذاکره مستقیم.
We had direct talks for 2.5 years. We held direct negotiations. We held it day and night, 2-3 rounds of talks. He proceeds to outline that the ballistic missile production of Iran, it's off table. No negotiating about the ballistic missiles, and they're just going to go ahead and do whatever they want with nuclear because they've decided now they have done their due diligence. No. I very, very highly doubt that this ploy is particularly going to play out very well. Now, the Iranian Foreign Ministry is also reaching out yet again to Russia and Iran and receiving, you guessed it, radio silence.
Oh, there's a big surprise. That's an incredible. I think I'm going to have a heart attack and die from that surprise.
Yeah, China and Russia ain't doing a thing. Beijing and Moscow's got its own problems. It's busy flying kites and drones, like the end of Mary Poppins. And then China is busy trying to keep its crumbling infrastructure, otherwise known as concrete without any rebar, and the internal economic strife that has coups and assistant coups and diplomatic actions and espionage-related actions occurring in several different regions inside communist China. They're not going to help Iran. They didn't help after Fordo. You think they're going to help now? I don't think so. That's going to be a no, Steve. So what do the Iranians actually have at play here? The answer is a waiting game. And that puts a couple of cards in the Trump administration's hands. But again, right now, what you are seeing is the continual abuse, upwards of maybe 50,000 dead, the Iranians. The president of the United States put a red line in the sand. We'll have to see what he chooses to do in his administration. Radio crew, we're going to send you over to commercial. We're going to talk a little bit more about China over here on the Tony Kinnett Cast. In the meantime, it's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. Now, meanwhile, on the live stream side, Eileen Gu is an American-born Olympic star who has decided to compete for China in the Winter Olympics. There's this very weird strand of youths that have decided that China is so much better than the United States. So you have Hassan Piker, who goes over to Beijing and gleefully says that China is so absolutely wonderful, just ignore all of the ethnic genocide and, again, all of the communist repression, etc. And then you have this Olympic skier, and she is all in a tizzy. Why is she all in a tizzy? No, it's not because one of her sponsors for, merchandising deals in the Olympics has more lead and asbestos in the child's toys that it creates than a 1950s toy room. But in this particular instance, she's very, very upset because the president of the United States didn't particularly enjoy the criticism levied by a United States Olympic athlete, Hunter Hess. So, as usual, whenever there is something that Americans are not happy about, who wants to weigh in? Former Americans? I think that's rather strange. Whether it's like Rosie O'Donnell or whichever celebrities have moved to France this week, or of course those who have left the United States for China, they're very quickly trotted out to go, see, this is the kind of thing that I left the United States for. Okay. Deeply exciting, thrilling stuff. She said, I'm sorry that the headline that is eclipsing the Olympics right now has to be something so unrelated to the spirit of the games, the two-time gold medalist told The Atlantic. Ah, yes, the Chinese lecturing us about the spirit of the games. The same Chinese who engage in child slavery and human trafficking to staff their gymnastics team. That China has the president criticizing someone. Oh, that's just too much. Well, let's see. What was the president criticizing? What in the world did Hunter Hess, and U.S. Olympic skier, say that had the president of the United States in a rather unhappy mood? Here you go.
It brings up mixed emotions to represent the U.S. right now, I think. It's a little hard. There's obviously a lot going on that I'm not the biggest fan of, and I think a lot of people aren't.
Now I'm going to level with you. Just real quick, just right up front. If you start talking with a Valley accent, I'm not going to be able to take you seriously. I'm not. I'm sorry. If you're like, it's kind of hard, like between Tony Hawk gaming sessions, to think about the United States in as more of like kind of the concept, So he's not a fan of ICE and the recent immigration law enforcement in the country. So he's taking his time. The Atlantic finally found an Olympic athlete to criticize the United States. So he's going to go all in because, I'm sure that Phelps can't do all of the weed at the Olympics. Yes, by the way, I realized that, Phelps was a swimmer and this is the Winter Olympics, but give me a break.
It's a little hard. There's obviously a lot going on that I'm not the biggest fan of, and I think a lot of people aren't. If it aligns with my moral values, I feel like I'm representing it.
My moral values of, the coast and, like surfboard wax and Ventura, that's like my values. Even though, again, a lot of the other endorsements that he has have serious ethics complaints. He's never had an issue, ever, criticizing anything over on the left. But ICE is in the news. So some Instagram girl he's going after has criticized it. He's got to weigh in.
Just because I'm wearing the flag doesn't mean I represent everything that's going on in the U.S. So yeah, I just kind of want to do it for my friends and my family and the people that support me getting here.
You mean Americans? You don't have to represent the United States. You don't have to. You don't have to go out there You being a phenomenal athlete does not mean you have to go out and represent that country. If you hate it here so much, you can leave. This is the opinion of the president. He said, U.S. Olympic skier Hunter Hess, a real loser, says he doesn't represent his country in the current Winter Olympics. If that's the case, he shouldn't have tried out for the team. And it's too bad he's on it. Very hard to root for someone like this. Make America great again. And I wholeheartedly agree with the president. You don't want to be here? Get out. ISIL will offer a little bit of money, sweeten the deal, help you self-deport, get right out of their homes. Go ski somewhere else, man. I mean, you can go up to Canada or Belize, two very Hispanic countries, at least, according to Bad Bunny. Sorry, we'll get to that in a little bit here. We're going to bring the radio crew back from commercial, and we're going to talk about what Congress is fighting about, because apparently we're going to be some of the only ones that cover it. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIPC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. Now, radio crew, we're about to send you guys out for the evening because you have some phenomenal ball games to listen to this evening on our various syndicated stations. So you should head over to youtube.com/Daily Signal or rumble.com/The Daily Signal and catch the live stream. And then, if you resist the urge to gawk at the gorgeous hunk on your camera, you can catch the live stream with the rest of us here during the evening. Now, Congress is having a tizzy. You say, Tony, day ending and why? Why is that news? Because right now, Congress is essentially settled on fighting an 80-20 issue that Democrats are not willing to budge on. It's kind of bizarre, really, because right now, as we continue to move through cycles of polling, in which initially there is an issue that voters are polled on, they give you some kind of an answer, and then as the issue remains in the news cycle, you'll either see the polling moderate or it will become starkly different. In other words, disapproval will go down and approval will go up. That's what we're seeing with voter ID right now. The SAVE Act is becoming more popular by the day. And even in the most horrible, nightmare-inducing warnings from the Democrats, you might have to produce your birth certificate. Oh, no. Not your birth certificate. No. That kind of stuff. The terrifying horror-struckness of actually proving that you're a citizen before you vote. By the way, there was an illegal immigrant who was convicted today of participating in voter fraud. You know, that thing that you're told that never happens. We'll get to that particular story in just a bit. Because right now, the House of Representatives, led by Speaker Mike Johnson, the heavy-swinging Louisiana Baptist, has got in front of the country and said, we'll pass voter ID as many times as we need to. Once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, no problem. And it is Senate Majority Leader John Thune that is getting really nervous because right now, the Republicans do not have 60 votes in the Senate. And so that means that Democrats could filibuster it. Now, there are a lot of Republicans out there right now who are saying, fine, you know what? You don't have to get out there and throw away the filibuster rule forever, but you make Democrats filibuster voting ID. You make Cory Booker take Imodium and stand up there without pooping for 25 hours and yell about how evil it is to show voter ID until he finally gets tired of filibustering and then the vote passes. Do it. This is the opinion of Representative John Rose of Tennessee, who I think articulates this very clearly.
83% of Americans agree about this. 71% of Democrats believe that you should have to prove you're a citizen before you vote in our elections. It's about safeguarding the most important right that is used to vindicate all other rights in this country. If we don't have secure elections, then we'll see events like what happened in 2020 happen again and again. And the American people will ultimately be frustrated and perhaps give up on the democratic process that undergirds the republic.
That's key. That's key. Americans right now are at a point of generational lows when it comes to trust in our American institutions. Generational lows. How do I know that? Because anytime the government announces anything, any office, local, state, federal, etc., it has to be a conspiracy. If you don't like it, it's conspiracy. Somebody that I like fired? Oh, it's a conspiracy. The governor's office, he's calling people. Don't stop it. Stop it. There's a record low of institutional trust right now in our country. And by the way, what this really functionally turns into is a roadmap to the end of any kind of political engagement. In which case it'll essentially be all power, double back check, hand patty cake slapping for the end of time, which isn't good. Now, John Fetterman, a moderate in his rhetoric Democrat. Again, he votes really far to the left on a lot of things, but he has emerged as the moderate voice of the Democrat Party, which is good because Representative Jared Golden of Maine, who is the other moderate on the House side, he's not running for re-election because the Maine Democrats are so angry that he's not Bernie Sanders, but the younger. Instead, he's more of a moderate voice. Well, Fetterman's here for a bit. Pennsylvanians like him. He has one of the highest approval ratings of any Democrat senator among independents. Here was his take on voter ID. Again, you will notice it's common sense based.
And now me as a Democrat, I do not believe that it's unreasonable or to show ID just to vote. And I remind everybody that less than a year ago in Wisconsin, they added that to the Constitution by a 63% passing to put that in the Constitution that you have to show ID to vote. And they also elected a very, very liberal justice into their Supreme Court. So it's not a radical idea for regular Americans to show your ID to vote. And it's absolutely, those things are not Jim Crow or anything.
I just realized kind of the time side. So radio crew, we are going to let you guys scoot out for the evening. And we're going to continue here on the live stream. So take very good care. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated and first on 93 WIBC. Now, to be clear, the reason I play so many clips from Fetterman and then also concurrently Dave McCormick over in Pennsylvania, this is where Americans are going to look for things like the midterms. This is where Americans are looking. This is where independents are looking. Right now, you have Republicans that are pushing basic common sense proposals and Democrats that are saying, well, yeah, that sounds reasonable. That's what the future looks like that is in any way, shape, or form productive, and Americans realize that. They do. People that get on the TV and say very basic, very common sense things that don't try to dance around the issue and pretend, well, I actually don't understand that. This is the point that Representative Brandon Gill makes from Texas.
I expect every Republican in the House to vote for the SAVE Act. This is something we've been talking about for a long time. And, I think it's particularly relevant after 4 years of Joe Biden letting in 15 million plus illegal aliens into the country. What we want to say is simply that only if you are an American citizen should you be voting in American elections. A core part of national sovereignty is the ability to determine that only our people, only the people who have full allegiance to America and its institutions should be voting. And remember that every time an illegal alien votes in American elections, that waters down or disenfranchises American citizens who should have sole representative power in this country. This is something that the vast majority of Americans agree with, and we're going to get it passed.
Yeah, makes sense. Again, when you approach things, this is something we've been talking about for a very long time. And then you provide a solution. Americans really, really like that. We're going to talk about this with the Trump accounts here in a minute or so. Again, if you ask me what the biggest legacy achievement for the president of the United States is likely to be by the time he is out of office, without a doubt, the Trump accounts. The Trump accounts are the very first thing that has been put into practice that is likely to save Americans at large from the increasing welfare and social security national debt escalation crisis. It's a very, very good thing. It's a very good thing. And if Republicans push forward these kinds of opportunities, as we're likely, I believe, to see, especially out of Lee Zeldin's office, especially out of Chris Wright, Secretary of Energy's office, of course, Scott Bessent's office, these kinds of things Americans are going to warm up to. Now, Hakeem Jeffries, of course, minority leader in the House, he can't even answer basic questions at a press conference anyway. If people think that this is impressive, you have like hype accounts on social media anytime anyone makes a statement, especially on what are considered ebb news cycles like today. Like breaking, Hakeem Jeffries says he doesn't like things. I don't even think you're getting that out of this. This is pathetic.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. You said that the SAVE Act is not going to pass the House, but a vast majority of Americans, including 70% of Democrats, do support having voter ID requirements. So are Democrats on the wrong side of an issue with so much support? What's the path forward for Democrats here?
Republicans are clearly on the wrong side of every single issue.
The question was, hey, voter ID. A lot of support for it in the country. Republicans are supporting this particular measure. A lot of Democrats, voters, also support this. We're talking wild supermajority margins. And then his immediate first word is Republicans are on the wrong side of every issue in history. Just incredible. Incredible.
That's here.
Republicans are clearly on the wrong side of every single issue, which is why they are getting crushed electorally. This is a desperate effort by Republicans to distract. The so-called SAVE Act is not about voter identification. It is about voter suppression. And they have zero credibility on this issue, Republicans, in the same way that they have zero credibility on every other issue.
Okay, hot tip. Just a really cool tip, bro to bro. I'm gonna spin around my chair like Kamala, and we're gonna talk just for a second, like cool youths, as they say. No one believes you, bud. If you really, really think that there are some suppressive elements, you would list a few that aren't easily debunked. You would run something. It would be on every billboard. Like when you said, hey, they're banning saying the word gay. Oh, yeah, that was complete bullcrap. Okay, maybe don't run billboards, but at least come up with something here. Something. I mean, anything at all. No, nothing at all. And by the way, this isn't just hitting the major, big, super progressive leaders. Right now you have some who are considered moderate Democrats. And when I say moderate Democrats, I mean, they put up a moderate front, like Jared Polis of Colorado. Maybe they'll kind of support a little school choice something, or Josh Shapiro, maybe he doesn't like Hamas, or Andy Bashir, doesn't hate Republicans sometimes, kind of. Then when you actually get into conversation about policy, they go so insanely far to the left that it appears stupid even to other liberals on stage or on set. In case, Governor Andy Bashir of Kentucky, on The View, because that always improves ratings just right up there. Here he is, again, decrying voter ID.
The White House has been pushing the SAVE Act, which would require citizens to show documents like a passport or a birth certificate to register to vote.
Oh, no. Now, again, this is The View's explanation. You would have to show a passport or birth certificate. Oh, the horror. Oh, man. Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind as we get the question answered.
Voter ID is something that a large majority of Americans support. Kentucky does require voters to show an ID for federal and state elections. Where do you fall on the SAVE Act specifically?
Well, I consider myself pragmatic.
Oh, pragmatic. So if he's going to be pragmatic, doing the thing that works, he would side on the 80 side of the 80-20 issue. Yeah. Or in this case, the 90-10 issue, right? It's pragmatic. There are things as a pundit, as a political host, that I could get up here and say every evening. Some of them, while true, are not pragmatic to say at that particular time. Pragmatic would essentially be going with the crowd here. It's politics. That would be the pragmatic thing, especially since you're in a state that is a red state with some blue dots that elected a blue governor. And if you have presidential ambitions at all, or at least you want to have enough money to buy a better tie than that god-awful magenta nightmare, then maybe you'd side with the 90-10 issue. That's pragmatic here.
Now, I think that we can agree that election security is an important thing. But when...
Oh, he said, but election security is an important thing. Then...
Fall on the SAVE Act specifically.
Well, I consider myself pragmatic. Now, I think that we can agree that election security is an important thing.
But
when you create policies that are so onerous.
Onerous. They're super duper stinky. They're weevilous, Smeckledorfarious. Wow.
You push people out who have the right to vote.
You're going to push people out. You're going to push them out. We all know that birth certificates and passports are just right up there. Hardest things to get a hold of. It's terrible. A lot of people aren't even born. They just pop out of the ground like dwarves. Incredible. How are they going to get a birth certificate, huh? A passport to travel? There's a lot of people who stand in the exact spot their entire life. They can never get a passport. Clearly, some people are afraid of the color blue. Guess what color passports are? Blue. Yep, checkmate, Republicans.
Who should be able to register. And so I think on any policy, you got to look at what's reasonable.
Ah, reasonable.
What is a form of ID that the vast majority of Americans have or can secure? What are your policies that are going to make sure that those that don't have that form can get it and can get it easily?
So again, I'll let you in on a little secret. The driver's licenses that you're suggesting, you just get a driver's license. That should be the standard. I happen to remember being in the state of Wisconsin working for Governor Scott Walker's office when he announced that illegal immigrants were not going to be allowed to have driver's licenses. Because guess what? They're not legal. They're not here. They are not citizens of the United States. They should not have a driver's license. They have a work visa, maybe a special kind of driver's license, depending on the situation. Other than that, though, no. And the left lost their ever-loving minds. They freaked out. Huge rally in Madison, full of angry people, a lot of whom didn't speak English. And this idea that driver's licenses, which a bunch of people can already get in a lot of these states. You can get a driver's license. Like, let's say you want to drive a semi-truck in Pennsylvania. If you show that CDL, then what? You're telling me that the Pennsylvania office, the lady sitting there at the DMV, she's going to go, yeah, I see your license here. Now, let me ask you some immigration-related questions. You've never been to a DMV before. And by the way, if you submit an ID, you just send that in. Yeah, they'll send you a ballot. Get out of here. We've seen it before. Again, an individual just indicted on that particular instance today. Now, it's midterm season. So if we're going to go into this, and we're going to leave, again, I know we're stepping away from Congress just slightly here. We'll talk about Jasmine Crockett and crying racism and her latest black scent in a minute. We're in campaign season, which means two things in America. We're getting ready to hit the Lincoln Day dinner and the state fair season. It's coming, in which your favorite or least favorite politician is going to take pictures of themselves eating state fair food that they would never in a million years touch because they're normal, just like you and me. And the other thing that they're doing is they're going after the American worker. Ah, yes. So Democrats have decided to don the hard hats. Republicans too. They're going out there and they're talking to factory workers. So Chuck Schumer, Senate Minority Leader, with an approval rating of actually 0 of New York. He's out there. He's leading the rallies, guys. Here you go.
Union. Union. Union.
So a couple of things that I enjoy. First of all, he shouts union, and then they're like, yeah, because it's really dumb and also lame and gay. Why are you chanting union? You're supporting a Gateway Rail Tunnel project, according to the Chiron here. So why are we just chanting union over and over in your high-vis jacket that is straight from Uline and your special little commemorative white plastic hard hat to keep anyone from knocking some sense into you? And then also, if you're going to chant union and the crowd starts chanting it differently, so you go union, and then they go union. And then that happens a couple times. Maybe switch up how you're saying it to mimic what they're saying. Because, the rhythm, they ain't taking it. But,
Union. Union. Now, I want you to...
So then as soon as the crowd starts chanting it, he's like, now, hold on here. We're going to throw in some hand motion. Father Abraham had many unions. I love it. I love it. It's so much fun watching Chuckles get out there and campaign.
Talk so loud, to holler so loud, that guy in the White House is going to hear us. Fund Gateway now. Fund Gateway now.
So half the crowd shouts union because they think they're still saying union, and then about a fourth of the crowd just says now, and then the other fourth says Fund Gateway now, which I do enjoy. So he gets out there. He's like, okay, guys, let's shout loud enough that all the way in the camp dining commons they hear us. And then we'll go eat our lunch and the Jell-O. Exciting stuff. Now, Pete Hegseth, Secretary of War, he's doing this too. He also was in front of the American workers today. And he's doing, Hegseth does a really phenomenal job of delegating some kinds of responsibility to individuals who are truly saving, for example, the production status of the United States Navy, the defense industry, to actually start producing things that aren't $40,000 toilets. Really good stuff. Hegseth is also getting out in front of factory guys and being able to read people a little bit better than Chuck Schumer. He gets out there and says, we're cutting DEI crap out of our military and our funding decisions and our manufacturing decisions. And that means no more dudes in dresses.
No more dudes in dresses.
And the entire crowd of dudes, except for this one really skinny guy in like the front left, just start going crazy. So, the manufacturing sector going to be okay. Now, we'll talk a little bit later about probably in another show coming up here soon. We're still working on a particular study here on the employment numbers and the tariffs and their impact long term into the United States and the manufacturing sector, and how not like your Amazon corporate offices, but your automotive manufacturing, your tech manufacturing, and other offices are handling employment in the United States. Because there is still a considerable amount of angst and aggravation over, for example, the H-1B visa system and how American workers are selected or passed over. And this means going to the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, the EEOC. Now, I'm not going to do that because I'm here in Indiana and I don't have the ability just to, shoot over to D.C. in the middle of a snowstorm and talk to the EEOC. That's why we have a White House correspondent. Huge overhaul. We go over to Elizabeth Mitchell, our White House correspondent, just out of a conversation with the chair of the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. Kind of an update on the H-1B visa situation. Elizabeth, tell us what you know.
Hi, Tony. So there's a whole government effort to crack down on abuses of H-1B visas, which are visas that foreigners can get to come work within the United States. And so the EEOC is a big part of this all-government effort. She talked about their involvement in something called Project Firewall, which is attempting to make sure that American workers are not discriminated against and that employers aren't preferring foreign workers over Americans. And particularly the way this can come up is in employment discrimination. So that's what the EEOC does. They bring claims, they look at claims of employment discrimination for various companies. They file lots of lawsuits, get people who are wronged, very large settlements frequently. So what's going on here is she said we can expect public actions, announcements very soon in the near future, clamping down, she said, on discrimination against American workers. One example where we see this happening is sometimes there are advertisements posted online where only foreign workers are able to access those and American workers wouldn't be seeing those. So sometimes that might be flyers given out to people in a certain country and Americans aren't able to see them. It could be jobs that discriminate, saying that they only want foreigners because they want people who don't speak English because they feel like they could take advantage of people like that more easily and pay them less money. And so there's a variety of reasons why employers would discriminate against American workers in favor of foreigners, but that's illegal. And Andrea Lucas told me that while people usually wouldn't consider discrimination by national origin to apply to Americans, it absolutely does. And that's something that the Trump administration will not tolerate.
Well, this is a huge difference from the last EEOC. Obviously, under the Biden administration, it was focused a lot more on perceived racial or sexual slights at the workplace, down to the extreme minutia. How is Andrea doing things a little differently with this EEOC? This is a 180 turn.
Yeah, I talked to her a lot about that. And she said the way that her philosophy is different is that she sees all discrimination as equally wrong. She says that future discrimination or present discrimination doesn't make up for past discrimination. And so that's something we've seen in the past, as you mentioned, with some of those past EEOC chairs who are maybe discriminating against maybe white people, white males in the future to make up for the discrimination against minorities in the past. She said that is unacceptable. And she's looking actually into discrimination against white males particularly. And she announced just last week an action against Nike because they believe Nike engaged in racially discriminatory hiring practices on the basis of DEI. And so she told me she's doing a total and complete overhaul of the agency. Her philosophy is completely different than those before her. But another really interesting difference that she has from those before her is that she doesn't believe that the EEOC is an independent agency, but believes it is an executive branch agency that needs to answer and is accountable to the president. Past people have called it an independent agency, and she says this is hypocritical because law for years has shown that it is an agency that is part of the executive branch under the president.
So this would be something that you might expect Trump to delegate under the Department of Justice with Attorney General Pam Bondi, litigating based on certain cases of perceived discrimination. Obviously, we know Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dillon has spent a considerable amount of time focusing on righting the wrongs of power-based dynamics that, well, this group is doing really well, so they don't need represented. And, well, the American worker is already so rich and wealthy. What do we care if they're being discriminated against compared to all of the foreign work outside of the United States being advertised to? Is this going to be in conjunction with the Attorney General's office, or is this going to answer directly to perhaps OMB or the president's office directly?
Well, so Harmeet Dillon oversees the civil rights branch of the DOJ, and Andrea Lucas particularly is focused on civil rights as well, but in the cases of employment discrimination. So that's where she's particularly focused, but I think they do have pretty parallel missions, which is making sure there's no discrimination of any kind in the United States.
Elizabeth Mitchell, our White House correspondent, right quick to the point. Thanks for your update. And again, bringing us a little bit of the window into what's going on in Washington, especially with the administration.
Thanks, Tony.
All right, we are going to swing from that really quick. I should mention this here. I talked earlier about an illegal immigrant convicted on Friday on charges that she voted illegally in the 2024 presidential election. Again, thing you're told is not happening at all. That immigrant is Lina Maria Orovino Hernandez. She is from Colombia. She was convicted on Friday, according to the Washington Times, on charges that she voted illegally in the 2024 presidential election and stole some $400,000 in Social Security disability, food stamp, and housing assistance. Lina Maria Orovino Hernandez lived for more than 20 years under a stolen identity, applying as far back as 2005 for food stamps under a bogus name. In the ensuing decades, she collected $101,000 in disability payments, nearly $260,000 in rental housing benefits, and $43,000 in food stamps. Now, she looks like just another kind of sweet grandma. And right now, you'll see an article, at least if you head over to CBS, citing rather erroneous data that the vast majority of detainees from Immigration Customs Enforcement have never been convicted or charged with any kind of a crime whatsoever. Now, the actual numbers are closer to 70% who have committed a kind of crime when being picked up. And the argument that is being made that we really only need to focus on the guys that look like they could be bouncers in, I don't know, some club in Charlotte, like that's who we need to be focusing on. No. Everyone in this country, no matter what they look like, who is here illegally, should absolutely be suspect for mooching off the system. And by the way, not because they're all devious masterminds, but because when they are on their way to the United States and being trafficked, there are individuals that are telling them exactly how to get the kind of federal subsidizations, grants, and straight up welfare from different localities, and of course the federal government, to live for years on stolen identities, on endless illegal welfare receiving. And you remember this from the 2024 election. There were individuals over on places like TikTok that were saying, yeah, you should squatters' rights, go take someone else's house, take someone else's identity, take someone else's bank account, take some of that, take some of that. It really is disgusting, but it continues to be something that a lot of Americans remember a little bit too clearly to take Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer, some other random yelling, squawking individual and suggest that voter ID, oh yeah, it probably is enough. After all, no one ever games the system and gets a hold of an ID illegally, anything like that. As things go, I believe the best analysis of the situation has come from perhaps simultaneously Steven Crowder and Ben Shapiro on this one, is that Democrats appeared initially to kind of win the battle on the Immigration Customs Enforcement operation regarding polling, and they are going to lose the war. Because the left can never take any political momentum and run with it. They started demanding, we want body cameras on everyone immediately. Now there was an article that came out this weekend over from Politico. I could believe it. I can't say that I didn't. February 7th, so that would be on Saturday. Democrats fear body cameras could be ICE's new mass surveillance tool. From Politico. Congressional Democrat leaders have made universal use of body cameras one of their prime demands for imposing accountability on ICE, especially after federal agents fatally shot 2 American citizens in Minneapolis. But, I love it, always a but after an outcry from privacy advocates that surveillance tools will now allow ICE agents to identify and track protesters. Essentially, if the ICE agent has a camera on their chest and you come up and you violate the law and maybe their head's turned over here, turned off to the side, guess what? Camera still picks you up there, bud. And so, LOL. I mean, this is really incredible. So now Democrats are backpedaling, and also they remember what happened the last time that they got all out and went all in for body cameras. All of a sudden, all of this police brutality that was supposed to be happening in these self-defense police, self-defense shootings is what they were. All of a sudden, we have all this footage of people running at police officers with knives and guns and axes. Gee whiz, oh man, those body cameras sure turned out real well. So I'm not blackpilling is the term, the millennials and then on down to the Gen Zs. I'm not like doom and gloom for this particular election cycle just yet. There's quite a bit that is in movement, and we're going to pop over to commercial real quick, pick up the crew, and then we're going to talk a little bit about, yes, Bad Bunny, Kid Rock, and the most embarrassing thing of all, the New England Patriots. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. Don't y'all go anywhere.
This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
So, I've said this on the show before, but I want to make this very clear right up front. This is not going to be like a deep expose on the Super Bowl halftime show and all that stuff. It's not. I don't care for the professional sports unless it's the MLB, because I love Cardinals. But when it's basketball, I hate the NBA. I don't care for them at all. I think that in the NBA, I think the hoop should be another foot higher. I'm sorry. I love college basketball. I don't really care for the NFL. I love college football. I love college sports. Cannot stand the NFL. I think the NFL is a very, 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 very gay and retarded organization. I think the NBA is essentially just China, but with taller athletes. So right off the bat, okay, when the NFL commissioner came out and said, we're going to get Bad Bunny for the halftime show because he'll bring everyone together, there's the NFL for you, ladies and gentlemen. Really out of touch, really stupid, goofy goober nonsense. So Bad Bunny was going to do an entire show in Spanish. Okay, he was going to do a whole halftime show in Spanish. Okay, the 97th, 98th percentile of people watching the Super Bowl do not speak any kind of Spanish. Weird choice, but okay. And then Bad Bunny gets out there and we've got all of the theatrics, because the halftime show, which I'm sorry, if you are watching the Super Bowl, if you're watching a game for the halftime show, dude, if I would have said that when I was a kid to my friends, we were talking about the upcoming Super Bowl, and I said, well, I'm really excited for the halftime show, I would have been made fun of just to beat the band for the next several weeks. I hate the New England Patriots. I think the Seahawks are really, really annoying. I wanted both teams to lose. I think what I actually told a lot of my friends is I was kind of hoping that one of the New England wide receivers somehow found a way to wedge himself inside one of the Gatorade coolers, because I despise him that much. But we get to the halftime show, and there's all of this theater. There's a wedding, and then there's a bunch of flag running, and then Bad Bunny goes and hands his Grammy to a child who several journalists and a CNN anchor tried to claim was actually Liam Ramos, the 5-year-old whose dad abandoned him running away from ICE. It wasn't. They found like a body double for the kid to act for him, which was weird, strange stuff. And then he gets out and he starts like naming all these countries after his songs, which, by the way, so 2 fun little cultural facts here. First of all, the Puerto Rican one of the two Puerto Rican accents of Spanish is considered the, let's just say, among other Hispanic communities. Again, I lived with families from both Honduras and Nicaragua when I was in college. And Puerto Rican Spanish was considered gutter talk to begin with. He's even bad at that. So according to a lot of Spanish criticism online, he can't even speak Spanish well, which is embarrassing. And I say that as somebody who speaks Spanish. I'm not going to get into it, don't care. But I did think one thing was really funny. So at one point, he gets out there with all these flags, and he's like, oh, we're going to, all of the important America, Hispanic countries. And so you have all these flags start running out, and he's like, Argentina, and he's like all of the Central American. He makes his way up South America through Central America, and then he mentions Belize, which is really, really weird. We'll get why in a second. And then he goes all the way up and he's like, Mexico, and then also Canada. And everyone, again, kind of scratched their heads a little bit because there was a lot of weird gaslighting going on online. Again, I didn't pay very full attention to this until I was researching this for the show, to be honest with you. That American culture has changed and has now become wholly Hispanic. Again, as someone who loves Hispanic culture, I mean, my God, I married a part of it. I would say no. And I could see why a lot of Americans would not particularly prefer that. Number two, though, if you're going to celebrate Hispanic culture, waving the flags of Canada and Belize, in Belize, they speak English. That's the official language. It's a former British colony. No. Number two, just for fun, I shouldn't have to tell you that Canada's obviously not Hispanic. Canada's Indian. But people speaking Spanish is a colonial language. Spanish, it's a colonial language. The Spanish Empire. So if you are using the Spanish language to try to impress us with nativeness, using the primary settler enforced language, I don't really know if that's particularly the win that you're going for. But I mean, I don't know. I don't care for it. I didn't really care for it. And then also there was the Turning Point USA halftime experience show that they did. They did this over on YouTube. There was some 5 million concurrents, which is it's really incredible. That's really impressive numbers. I watched a little of it. It was okay. And I know a lot of you guys really, really liked it. A lot of you guys, enjoyed it. I'm just not a halftime show fan. I'm not going to, I know a lot of influencers were expected to go out there and say all of their deep thoughts on it. I thought it was okay. That's it. I mean, I'm impressed that they were able to do what they did with what they did. And I think that all of the really, really weird pearl clutching and insult throwing is you are forcing it. No one forcing it more than Morning Joe Scarborough. He was probably more salty as a sailor than just about anybody here. So,
there were some people on the MAGA right that took the bait. Well, 133 million people, Rev, watched Bad Bunny go out and just completely own the field.
So as far as him citing 133 million, we don't have the numbers released yet. We do not have the numbers released yet. There's Florida press right now that's already having to retract a bunch of their statements on the numbers on things. We don't have the numbers for it yet. Don't run out. Don't get ahead of your skis. Even if you want to get to Duncan, hang on there, Chipper Skipper.
The stage, the country, the world. Lady Gaga comes in. This was a pretty extraordinary statement. Ricky Martin. It was 133 million people watching this instead.
Don't have the numbers yet.
Instead of alternative programming where they had a guy performing who, of course, throughout his career has preached the glories of, and Franklin Graham, I guess, likes this because he said it was a God and country thing, but a guy who has preached the glories of having sex with underage girls and setting up escort services atop the Four Seasons.
Okay. All righty. Let's have a quick conversation about kind of the morality and ethics of things. So first of all, the entire music industry is a filthy, putrid pile of garbage. And I have said before, I will say again, do not look to celebrities for your salvation. I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's Taylor Swift. I don't care if it's Nicki Minaj. I don't care if it's Kid Rock. I don't care if it's the Beatles. I don't care. I don't care. They're celebrities. All right. I agree with Sage Steele. Like, shut up and sing. Do what it is that you want to do, sure. But expecting me to get out there, that, you know, someone's going to get out there and perform, and now I have to go through and I have to find someone who's always been perfect and never has done anything wrong and all this other stuff. Okay, no, I'm not impressed by it. No one's actually out there going through all of the entire music industry sucks. Okay, it was impressive what Turning Point was able to do. It was cool. A lot of people really liked the music. Cool, awesome. The best part of the night was that the New England Patriots somehow, of the teams present, got the third most running yards. And you say, Tony, there are only 2 teams playing. How did they get third most in running yards? Because there was what is being called a streaker. I thought that streakers had to be naked. I'm finding out apparently that's not the case. Some dude who just took his shirt off but is still wearing black jeans, unless like all of these recordings have been edited to like put on AI black jeans. And if that's the case, we've reached a new cool level in censorship, I guess. But anyway, there's like a streaker dude, sort of, who goes out onto the field and he's avoiding the officers, he's avoiding the refs, he's doing a lot of juking. He had something written on his back. I don't know what it is, I don't care. And then as soon as he sees one of the as soon as he sees that it's not just the refs and like some security officers and like a ball boy who's chasing him, but he turns around and it's one of the Patriots, he immediately is like, oh no, and he goes down immediately of his own accord. I'm done. I would rather not be wrecked by an actual guy donning one of the team's garb this evening. So then like the security officials did all of their dogpiling, you know, show's over kind of stuff. That man ran better than anybody on the Patriots offense. Embarrassing, humiliating. How do you go like 12-0 until like the 4th quarter? And even when the Patriots started putting some points on the board, Seahawks were keeping well apace of them. That's just sad. That's sad. I'm the kind of guy who I don't want to reach a championship match. I don't want it to be a blowout. I don't. I want it to be, believe it or not, like the Indiana-Miami game. I want it to be just a blood-stained fight to the finish, really good athletics, both a really good offense and a really good defense, and apparently kickers getting to play all of these super-duper special, ultra magical rules. I just want it to be a really great spectacle. And instead, this was really disappointing. Again, I'm not your guy to go to for this, but I just thought, you know, that said and aside, some of the gaslighting of this is just rather silly. I mean, it's a slow news cycle when that's kind of dominant, I suppose. Now, on to something that's really, really excellent. During the Super Bowl, a lot of weird ads that were played, like a Nerds commercial in which there was a guy who looked a lot like Jeffrey Epstein and had a lot of people going, oh, that's weird. Or the Ritz commercial, where a bunch of celebrities were talking about going to a private island, which was also very weird. There was a commercial from the Trump administration on the Trump accounts. Excellent, excellent stuff. This is the only ad we're going to play. It's fantastic. Here you go.
Dear America.
If I start investing when I'm 16?
9, 7. It could change my future. All our future. I want to be a nurse.
Go to college.
Be a businesswoman. I can save for a house with a trampoline. 2 trampolines.
This year, every American child gets an investment account, and millions will be pre-funded. That's free money.
We can all experience the American dream. Sign me up.
I love it. I do. Correct. The Social Security scheme has failed. It's failed. Oh, you're just going to put away money and then get direct access back to it. Why? It's not doing anything. It's not moving. It's not growing. Let me say, you know what? Sorry, peace out on the Social Security thing. We'll continue paying everyone who wants to stay in. Instead, let me take the money the government's going to take anyway and invest it instead. Actually cause citizens to have some skin in the game that isn't just, we're going to give you your money when you age out, and if inflation eats you alive, oh well. Instead of that, why don't we actually do the thing that gives it some legs, some moving? Again, this will be the policy that defines the Trump administration's greatest success. you will hear stories in 18, 20 years of kids reaching 18, 19, 20 years old who are multimillionaires because of investing through things like these Trump accounts. Incredible stuff. Every company, every state, every locality, every donor that is a part of this, awesome. I love to see it. Excellent stuff. Okay, second thing here in the intro to our bonus tonus section of the show here, now that it's after 8. I told y'all last week before we were finished on the whole Trump video, Obama's monkeys scandal controversy. I said it looks like it was auto-played, kind of a screen recording at the end, and no one watched before it went live. Well, gee stinking whiz, after I predicted that that is exactly what Trump was going to get up and say, it just so happens.
Sent it. Who sent it, and are you going to fire them?
No, I looked at it, I saw it, and I just looked at the first part. It was about voter fraud in someplace, Georgia. There was a lot of voter fraud, 2020 voter fraud, and I didn't see the whole thing. I guess during the end of it, there was some kind of a picture that people don't like. I wouldn't like it either, but I didn't see it. I looked at the first part, and it was really about voter fraud in and the machines, how crooked it is, how disgusting it is. Then I gave it to the people. Generally, they look at the whole thing, but I guess somebody didn't, and they posted, and we took it down, and we did it. You know, but that was a voter fraud that nobody talks about. They don't like to talk about that post. We took it down as soon as we found out about it.
Mr. President, a number of Republicans are calling on you.
Didn't make a mistake. I mean, I look at a lot of thousands of things.
What was cut out of the clip there, by the way, is they're like, well, you know, are you going to condemn that last little second of the video? He said, of course I am. That's it. So the president's like, nope, didn't watch it all. Sent it over. Voter fraud video, something stapled at the end. We took it down when something was stapled at the end of it. That was it. By the way, that's how you address a controversy, by the way. Controversy's over. Do you notice? I'm just like, no. Were you going to apologize? No, I just told you why it happened. It wasn't some big moral expose. Just, that's how you handle that kind of stuff. We're going to swing out real quick. I want to talk about a situation emerging. One particular judge letting a rapist and kidnapper off of 30 years of his sentence, essentially cutting it in half. She doesn't like the jury sentencing a guy to 60 years in prison because, well, he's black and a kid, I guess, in her eyes, even though he's not. So we're going to get into that. And then also some of the local government insanity, nonsense. It's getting real weird out there. I know that Congress is doing a lot of kerfluffle and shuffling, but man, the local parties are really struggling. Don't go anywhere. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. So while on the national stage, Democrats are trying two strategies. They're saying we don't like voter ID, even though we're not going to tell you why. And then other than Jasmine Crockett, the other thing is, we're going to talk about the Epstein files. We've really got him now. The walls are closing in. Finally, we got him. Again, even though... No. Now we have a couple of extra nightmarish, nonsensical things. So first of these would be Jasmine Crockett. She's out here. She's back. She's excited to be a part of things. She has, she's announced that, again, the only reason that people don't like her, the only reason you wouldn't care for Jasmine Crockett is the same reason you wouldn't like the Super Bowl halftime show, because you're racist.
You know, there are those that have their own motivations for critiquing. And, you know, I think that the people...
Is it just racism and sexism? Like, what do you think it is?
I mean, I think there's a lot of things. I think it depends on who it's coming from. But I've been a black woman my whole life. So this idea that I'm going to go and be like, oh, well, they're being racist or misogynistic towards me. Like, you think I didn't know I was a black woman when I woke up and decided that I was going to run for the United States Senate? Mm-hmm. You think I didn't factor in and make sure that we had enough room to account for that? We did.
So she's already blaming any electoral outcome on her race. That's a decision. That is a decision that you can make. It's a bad decision. I very much don't recommend it, but it'll be entertaining for the entire cycle. And then, once again, through the Epstein accusations, now you have a lot of Democrats who are getting out over their skis and are making even the media who are hosting them a little nervous, because they get out there, these Democrats, and they read social media and they just spend all of this time online scrolling through all of these comments that are saying, everything is proven. Trump is an extra bad, super duper racist, Hitler, rapist, child molester man. And then you have Democrats that are going out there and saying these things on network, or you have pundits who are getting out there and saying these things on network, and they have to retract these statements because there's no legal evidence for that's been shown yet of any kind of veracity. And they're getting defamation lawsuits by the bucket load. Now, the response to this, at least, should be, you know what, there are a lot of people that may get out there and make accusations. It's important to not get out, not go too far. What you don't want to do right now is admit that you're willing to lie to Congress and everyone. That if you get out there and you just blatantly lie, you didn't go too far. I mean, you just really don't like Republicans. Jasmine Crockett.
But when I see the moment on the House where you seem to accuse Republican Lee Zeldin of taking money from Jeffrey Epstein, but it seemed like if it was not the same person, I wonder, is there times in which the rhetoric goes too far? Are there times in which you should say, maybe I messed that one up?
No, not in this environment. I don't. I think that, we are really in uncharted territory.
So I hear your argument that you're reflecting the urgency necessary. And so that's why you won't give an inch.
Correct.
Okay. I have a better idea. Here on the Tony Kinnett Cast, if I make a mistake, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to admit to it, because it's far better for me to admit when I make a mistake, because I'm human, though in fact I be devilishly handsome, and you might see such excellence in me. I regret to inform you, I'm just a very sarcastic Hoosier and former teacher. And if I am honest with y'all about everything that goes on regarding the show, then you're more likely to be forgiving of things. But if I'm not, and I dig my heels in and I gaslight everyone and pretend that I never make a mistake, I'm never wrong, I never get out ahead of my skis, I'm perfect and infallible, after God zaps me with bolts of lightning for just exceptional hubris, pride, and arrogance, then every time I make any kind of a post or any kind of a statement, some of you will then post the clip of me doing the lie, as you should. We're very pro receipts here on the Tony Kinnett Cast. And we're also very pro not bragging about lying. Again, you guys know that one of the biggest gripes I have oftentimes with those who commit various crimes in the federal government and they act very, very angry after they're caught is they commit kinds of crimes that are so easily traceable. When you commit mortgage fraud, you are committing fraud in triplicate. And then it is documented and uploaded to 8 different servers. So again, just a pro tip out there, everybody in the whole wide world, you don't have to do the Jasmine Crockett approach. There is help. Stop it. Touch some grass. Talk to a loved one or a family. This has been one to grow on. All right, now on to some of the other insanity. I told you there was a judge that had made the decision to have a rapist and kidnapper's sentence. Again, this sentence recommended by the jury who convicted him. And she's going to tell you why she's not upset about it.
But Judge Davis thought the jury's recommendation was too long. She feels he hasn't mentally matured yet and never had a real shot at getting any help early in life.
Yeah. You get out there and you do a couple of crimes that everybody commits once or twice in life. You get out there, you do a little jaywalking, maybe a little mortgage fraud, maybe open up a Somali daycare center, do a little kidnapping, a little violent, really disgusting sexual abuse. Clearly, everyone who hasn't mentally matured all the way, those are crimes that all of us did in our teens. No.
But if you were to come in here and instead of being hurt and angry, which is what this court hears, right, as a 20-year-old African-American male.
He's 20. He is 2 years over the legal age for an adult. And in Kentucky, I believe you can be tried as an adult down to 14, 15. Convictions in Louisville have shown that in the last decade. So she's saying that if you would have come in here angry and hurt, experience, because, you're a black 20-year-old, where in the world could you be going?
That has been, experienced this society, etc. And you would show that, yes, okay, this is the situation. This is who I am. I don't want to be this person anymore. I don't want to be in jail for forever.
Thompson repeatedly stated he did not care, not about his sentence, the victim, or her family.
Okay, I had these kinds of students when I was a teacher. I did. When I was in rural Knightstown, Indiana, and Eastern Central, when I was in Lawrence North, in Indianapolis, when I was in Milwaukee, when I was in administration, urban, suburban, rural, there are a lot of students who recognize that because of this goofy, overly feminine idea of buy-in being required, that if a student just doesn't care, they have no idea what to do. I'll tell you what you do. Corporal punishment's the answer. Corporal punishment is absolutely the answer. Again, he says no remorse, I don't care, I don't do anything wrong. Again, he raped and kidnapped and sodomized. Doesn't care about the victim, doesn't care about the family, and the judge is seeing this.
But Judge Davis emphasized she's the one that holds the pen, and regardless of what the media may think, she applies the law. To her, 65 years was an extremely long time. As she puts it, it's his whole life.
Yeah, because you raped, kidnapped, and sodomized and abused a girl. Yeah, it's your whole life. You don't want to be locked away for that? Don't do it. And again, I've said this before. The noose is appropriate for any sexual crime of this nature. Appropriate and necessary.
One she doesn't believe should be spent entirely behind bars.
This court does not believe that Mr. Thompson, if given the resources that he can get while incarcerated, is beyond being rehabilitated.
I'm going to let you in on a little secret. Just because there's a chance that you might one day wake up and then, walk into the Shawshank, parole room, and all of a sudden you say the right thing, not a day goes by when I didn't know what I did. I'm very sorry for it, whatever. Just because there's a magical chance. I'm going to let you in on a secret. The point of prison is not rehabilitation. It should be punishment. Crime should follow a punishment, not rehabilitation. We all just, if you just sit him in timeout long enough and he becomes the wonderful, sparkling member of society. Or hear me out, someone who's about to commit a crime, who might be considering a kidnap, rape, sodomy, etc., would go, oh my gosh, they hung the last person, they hanged the last guy that did that in the town square, and they were humiliated, and they died. You know what? It ain't worth it. It ain't worth dying over. You say, Tony, what's your evidence for this? All of human history where that has been the prescribed manner of dealing with capital offenses. It wards off. It turns out that carrying the big stick wards off a lot of threats. Incredible idea. Now, Trisha Davis or whatever in Jefferson County, I'd say that's probably impeachment worthy. And if there are any journalists out there, every time you speak to Bashir for the next 2, 3, 5 years should be in question of whether or not Trisha should be impeached. It's just the amount of disrespect to that particular family and the victim. It's just disgusting. All because someone's decided, oh, it's so hard to be a black man in society. Oh, boo-hoo. I'm sorry. Why are we using like the whole Mao's Great March, communist Marxist idea of you've suffered a lot, so go enjoy your raping and your killing and your kidnapping because you're turning it over on the oppressors? It's literally why Haiti is a mess. Because unlike a lot of other colonies that were emancipated, when Haiti overthrew their French overlords and colonials, they then carried out one of the largest mass slaughters and orgy rapes in recorded human history. That we believe all the way back to the sacking of Constantinople or Zimbabwe any day of the year. So anyway, all of that particular stuff and aside, disgusting stuff going on in Kentucky. There are a lot of people that are very obviously frustrated with the situation in the Commonwealth of Virginia because Abigail Spanberger, who promised she wasn't going to do anything like this, has now, they're essentially moving forward with a 10-1 map in Virginia. And I'm going to level with you. I'm not upset about this. And the reason I'm not upset about this is because gerrymandering is within the right of a state government. It is. The Constitution clearly establishes that states are allowed to gerrymander. Yes, they are. And if the people of Virginia, and I don't mean the people who are likely watching the show, but if the actual voters in Virginia want to get off their lazy butts and elect a better state legislature, they're willing to do so. But instead, if they're just going to doom scroll on Instagram and not pay attention and get involved in politics, then they deserve what's coming to them. And I feel that way in every single state, including my own. I do. Because Democrats will always do this. Of course they will. The only way to get back away from something like this is a nuclear response. You have to be willing to show that you are willing to go the exact same distance, if not further. If you don't do that, then you're going to get what's coming to you on it. I'm afraid. And again, I'm not trying. I want Virginia to be gerrymandered to that extent? No. But is Virginia within its state and federal constitutional right to do so? Yeah, it is. The Indiana state legislature should have redistricted instead of State Senator Gene Lysing going, they contacted my grandson. All right. Democrat Sheriff of Charlotte, North Carolina. Producer Jen sent me this clip, and she knows that it's going to hurt me. The Sheriff of Charlotte, North Carolina, a Democrat, I know, shocker, has no idea how many branches of government there are or what constitutes those branches or which branch he's a part of.
What branch of government do you operate under?
Mecklenburg County.
What branch of government do you operate under, Sheriff?
Constitution of the United States.
So we're off to a swinging start in a committee. What branch of government you in? And he says the county that he is in North Carolina. Okay. Asks again, what branch? The opportunity word here, branch. B-R-A-N-C-H. Can you use it in a sentence? A noun, most often found attached to trees. Branch. And he says, the Constitution.
Correct. That is what establishes the branches of government. I'm asking which branch you fall under.
Mecklenburg County. I'm a duly sworn Mecklenburg County Sheriff. We answer to the people of Mecklenburg County.
No, you answer to the Constitution and the state laws of North Carolina. You don't answer to the people. That would be mob rule. You're not releasing Barabbas, homie.
This was not where I was anticipating getting stuck. Are you aware of how many branches of government there are?
No.
Okay. For the sake of debate, I will move on and say there are 3 branches of government: legislative, executive, judicial.
Look at that man. He's decked out like 4 stars on his epaulets. He's got all these stripes on his sleeve. What in the G.I. Joe Douglas MacArthur going to... What is that? Look at that uniform. Man's decked out like a South American presidente. Strutting in there. Doesn't know how many branches of government they are.
Of those 3, which do you believe you fall under?
I believe I fall under the last one.
Hold on. Wait.
For the sake of debate, I will move on and say there are 3 branches of government: legislative, executive, judicial. Of those 3, which...
Legislative, executive, and the judicial. Which branch do you believe you fall under?
Do you believe you fall under?
I believe I fall under the last one.
The judicial.
Would you say it to me?
Judicial.
Okay. You are incorrect, sir. You fall under the executive.
My job is to have like a quip to say after things like this. I don't necessarily have one. That is enough to make you want to either take whatever civics or history teacher that man had and beat them with wet noodles, or maybe you elect a sheriff who's literate. You know, maybe we get somebody that didn't graduate from the Quality Luring Center. Just just throwing that out there. Just a small something. But never mind, guys. The important thing is he's a minority. To Gene Wu, state representative, I believe. I don't think he's a state senator. He might be. I'll check here. Of the state of Texas, in their state legislature, he has announced that it's time to come out and fight the white man because, after all, there are more. He seems to cite Asians, black people who he calls Afro-Americans, and then lastly, Hispano-Latino winxes or whatever his term is. He says it's time to take over the country.
I always tell people the day the Latino, African-American, Asian, and other communities realize that they share the same oppressor is
the same oppressor. Okay. All right.
The day we start winning. Because we are the majority in this country now. We have the ability to take over this country and to do what is needed for everyone and to make things fair. But the problem is our communities are divided. They're completely divided. And I talk about this.
And tell me, Gene, why are the communities divided? Tell me why, according to every polling metric available, does the Asian American community really, really despise the Black American community? Do you know? Hey, how come that Stop Asian Hate campaign in the early 2020s stopped immediately? Why was that? Did it have to do with ATM, gas station, and body camera footage showing one particular group of people attacking another particular group of people? And it wasn't the white guys in Chicago MAGA country that I was told were doing it? I just love how desperate he is to get on the national stage. That man talks more than any state representative I've ever known. Also, don't be impressed with state representatives and state senators. I want to make this clear. There's nobody in politics. I know it seems like a very saturated field, but right now there's just nobody in politics. Nobody. I mean, my goodness, you have Maxine Waters and the incredible Mazie Hirono from Hawaii. On the right, a lot of stuff ain't too hot either. You have fever dream senators who can't even spell Bashir. And then you have people like Andy Bashir. So you're just nobody really in politics. But of the bottom of that barrel are absolutely state legislature individuals. I think that we should honestly make all state representatives, senators, and assemblymen in this country wear the fraternity freshman rainbow beanie with the propeller on it, so that you don't take them seriously. Until you've proven you know your state's constitution, until you've proven that you're not a complete idiot, you have to wear the beanie. And then depending on how dumb you are, you either get a propeller or an Oscar Mayer wiener on top of it. That's the rule. I'm just saying, you would start seeing some different representatives and senators elected to office. So, little fun there. I will answer a couple of mail time questions before we saddle on out this evening. There were a couple of really good ones that I wanted to tackle. First of all, from Delpix, she says, if the Puerto Rican accent is seen as kind of the gutter of Spanish language, then what counts as the gutter French language? Just all of France. All of French. I would say the best French is Quebecois French, but that's because their curse words are the best. Because in English, our curse words are all just either terms for excrement or sex stuff. But the French, they say like tabernacle and mon calice and a bunch of deeply personal and slightly to curse in Quebecois French is kind of a more serious thing because the terms that you're using are rather more important. So if you're going to do it, you might as well, it better actually carry the word. I don't know. I like that. So maybe Quebecois French up at the top, and then France is just at the bottom of the heap. So that would be gutter French would just be French. Gutter English is probably Cogni. I'm sorry. Alas, on that particular line, we got a super chat that was very kind. I believe that we might have had this question before, but you might have hopped out before we were able to answer it. And I'm not seeing it in the mail time chat, but it was a very, very kind, I think it was a $10 or $20 super chat, which asked, hey, it's from Kevin H. Stankiewicz, $10 super chat. Do MAGA Republican Americans need to march on DC and then like with a convoy, trucker, biker, veteran, student convoy to rally until the filibuster is nuked? No. Nope. Those kind of protests don't work. They are often very, very cringy. And although they are cool to see, again, I think I said the last time the question came up, I would love to own an Indian motorcycle and go on one of those really cool veteran or memorial rides where you like sponsor per dollar and then donate to like a veteran organization. That would be awesome. But I don't think that really big, huge protests and things are effective. Not right now. They're really just performative. And I don't think that would, your congressman's not looking out onto the street who's protesting them. So I don't necessarily think so on that one. I thought knots was a boat speed, not a measure of distance. Yeah, you're right. Sorry. That was absolutely my mistake. It was traveling. The boat off of Cuba, I believe, was 21 nautical miles, and then moved down to, I believe, 14 and a half nautical miles, which is, I think, the closest that an American naval vessel has reached the northern coastline of Cuba in a very long time. As far as how many knots that particular boat was traveling at, 16 knots was its speed, moving east by northeast. So, see? Simple stuff there. All right. That aside, last but not least, I think this is a good last question to end on. Tony, do you believe that Republicans can do anything at all to save the prospect? It's kind of hard to read. The prospect of like the economic outlook for the midterm. Yeah, I do. I do believe that as soon as the Republicans make it through tax season, things get a lot lighter. If the manufacturing base continues to expand and we actually start to delineate what the American economy is moving towards over a long-term period, the dollar needs to stabilize. The federal chair situation probably needs to get a lot more hammered out. I think you're going to see a pretty good, strong year of growth. How that trickles down, again, continual energy growth. The Trump administration is probably going to have to come out on the other side of the tariff thing, not totally scalped, but the Supreme Court is just kicking the can down the road. So, that said, little extra final note here at the end of the show. Brad Arnold from Three Doors Down passed away. I really like Three Doors Down. They were a good band. I don't believe they ever got to do a Super Bowl halftime show, but I much rather would have heard, this is where I will date myself exactly, I really much rather would have heard a Three Doors Down or a Matchbox 20 kind of Super Bowl halftime show in the rain with perhaps some trucks doing donuts than, what we ended up getting. So that stuff said and aside, have a wonderful evening. We'll be back tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern time, as always. If you feel so privy, liking, subscribing helps us out here on the Tony Kinnett Cast. We'll see you real soon. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC. Y'all, take care.